Now call to order the meeting, excuse me, the City Council meeting, Thursday, August 5th, 2021. Call the roll, please.
Yes, ma'am. Councilwoman Knappel.
Here.
Councilman Babcock.
Here.
Councilman Evil.
Here.
Councilman Peters.
Here.
Councilman Petty.
Here.
Vice Mayor Reese.
Here.
City Attorney Mullins.
Here.
We have 3 sets of minutes from July 1st, July 8th, and July 19th. Yes, sir.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve all 3. Second, any discussion on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Those are all approved, thank you.
Mayor Smith,
Yes, sir.
motion to limit discussions, all discussions to 2 minutes per person.
All discussion.
All discussion.
Okay.
Second.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second, okay. Any discussion on that? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Opposed.
Okay, so it passes. Discussion for everyone will be limited to 2 minutes. Consideration of bills over 2,000. Would you please tell us those bills?
Yes, ma'am. As always, guys, they're in your packet. The WEX bill is $2,888.50. That's our fleet bill for fuel. Mid-10 Engineering is the engineering designs for the fire hall bay and then embankment. That's $8,940 total. And then Jimmy Cunningham Electrical was $9,000, and that was on an emergency repair for the water plant.
Do I hear a motion to accept?
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve. Second?
Second.
Robert, second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. The next part of the meeting is for citizens to speak to any concerns. We always start with any citizens from Carthage who might want to address concerns. Are there any citizens here that live inside the city limits first that have any concerns to address? Okay, are there any other citizens in the county that have any concerns to address? Okay, then we will move on. To the mayor's report, just wanted to let you know that Ms. Sally's doing a wonderful job at the pool. Attendance is up. The water aerobics program went from 6 women to, I think they have 22 now, so it's very popular. She's going to try to keep it open for a while after the kids go back to school if she can get enough lifeguards. And that would be, I think she's saying like Tuesdays and Thursdays after school hours. We don't hold it to that. We'll let you know more about that. The walking track is coming along. The grading is pretty much finished for now. They'll be hopefully paving it next week. And there'll be an inspection by TDEC also next week. And when they finish the actual paving, they'll finish the grading and seed it. And then the dog park, yes, sir. Yes, sir.
It concerns me, I'm kind of in the dark while there have been a whole lot of really nice days and there's been no work going on the walking track.
Well, we're the same way, and we said that to the engineer. They had a breakdown of the machinery. Yes, we've constantly been talking to them, and I agree with you. It should have been finished by now. And they know we're not happy about it. But hopefully by next week, all the paving, they're saying, will be done, and the grading. And then the dog track is, the Public Works Department has been wonderful. We were donated 16 trees by Nursery in Smithville, Bert Driver Nursery. He was so kind of him to do that. So 3 of them are planted in the dog park, and the rest will be planted around the walking track once it's all seeded again. There'll be an official sign once that's all done and everything's finished. And then there will be a dedication by the Boyd Foundation because they're the ones that gave the money to put this thing together. So they'll come down from Knoxville to dedicate that part of it. So the young Boy Scout has done an amazing job. They were up there planting trees. It was amazing to see all of them with Chaz Hefty on it. Hopefully when all of that is finished, we will have another Markets Fest on September 18th, which is a Saturday. So we're hoping this will be finished in time because we couldn't do the one this month because they weren't. And I agree with you, Councilman, they should have been finished 2 or 3 weeks ago. this Saturday night, they're having a Done Music on the Square, if anyone is interested to go to that, 6 to 9. There is one thing I want to do, and Barbara, would you come up here just a minute? You have a council person who has done something fairly special, and we want to recognize her. This is from the town to Barbara Campbell in recognition of her 10 years of devoted service as Executive Director to Smith County Drug Prevention Coalition.
Thank you. That's very kind.
This is from She's done an amazing job. And
It's been a joy to be able to do that for those people in the county.
This is from everybody, so thank you for what you've done.
Thank you.
Very much. And that's all I have. I would like, yes, sir.
I did have several people reach out and just wanted to have clarification. There were several people that said that they had attended or came to the city pool during hours that they thought that it was supposed to be open and that it wasn't open, it wasn't unlocked. And they reached out to me to see if there was an issue. They said that there's the town page that the times have been changing, and they were just wondering if something could be concrete so they know every day that they're going to be there.
I think Sally tried for 2 weeks to keep it open from early on, from 10 on those days, and nobody came, but she was paying the lifeguard for those days. So she kind of made an announcement to everybody who usually comes there, but maybe this lady didn't, but that was Sally's call. She just felt like she was paying these lifeguards to be there for an hour that they weren't. Even nobody was there.
So is it what's the official time now? Is it 10 o'clock? Now
The aerobics classes right now, and this will change after school, are Tuesdays and Thursdays and Saturdays from 10 to 11. And then the pool is always opened at 11 o'clock. It's 11 to 5. So,
they were more asking about the early hours.
well, there aren't, the only early hours are the water aerobics now.
Right.
Yeah.
It's now 10 to 11.
On Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays. That's when Sally has it. Yes, sir.
I think the confusion came in on the Fridays, it was at the adult swim.
Yeah.
That was where the confusion came in. It was never open for the adult swim.
Well, she opened it for 2 different weeks and nobody came. And I think that was
So
her call.
that was what the concern was that I received, was for the adult swim time.
Right. And again, she did keep it. I know she had it available for 2 separate weeks on that Friday and no one was there. And then this lady that you're referring to, I think came, I don't know when that was. You'll have to ask Sally about that. But that's what Sally was telling me happened.
Sure. Just wondering if there was anything that could be either a sign or just something to where it's
She did put a sign up.
official. It is okay. I didn't know that.
Yeah, Sally put a sign with all the hours on the
Good deal.
board. Yeah.
Good deal. Thank you.
Yeah, good question. Thank you.
Is it open on Saturday and Sunday now?
I'm sorry, what?
Is it open Saturday and Sunday now?
The pool right now, it is still. It closes, I forget the date she told me, but it'll be open for a while after school goes back. She has a few lifeguards. She thinks she can keep working there.
Question again, is that sign on the outside where people can see it, or is that on the inside once you're there?
It's on the doors.
Oh, you can see it from the
She
outside.
said she put it on the doors. That's
I just wanted to make sure, so I can take a picture of it, put it out there, whatever, but I
Yeah.
just want to make sure.
Go down tomorrow. If it's not
Sure.
in the right place, just have her move it around.
Oh, it's fine. I'm not going to do that. I just want to make sure that I can at least put it out there for the people that ask me about
She
it.
is having pool parties almost every night there,
Yeah.
so there are a lot of people
Good
really
deal.
using it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Sure. We have a new attorney, Attorney Mullins, and we're very pleased to have him on board. Do you have anything you would like to say at the moment?
Well, I just want to say thank you for allowing me the opportunity to serve your city. I know many of you don't know me very well. If we were back up around Cookville, I'm sure, or Livingston where I live, I'm sure I would know most of you, and most of you would know my family, and have known me for a long time, but I don't know many of you, if I know any of them. Again, I appreciate the opportunity to serve here. I appreciate getting the opportunity to get to know every one of you and help you with the issues here in your city. I know I take small town cities to heart. I think this is the heartbeat of the nation in our small towns, and I think we need to guard our hometowns and protect them. So like I said, I really appreciate the opportunity to help you guys. Kind of where I'm at, like I said, I'm new. I don't know all the legal issues that persist at the moment. The previous attorney and I had a meeting via, it was supposed to be via Zoom. I didn't see him. I think he just had his audio on, but that was one day this week. I'll tell you the exact date. I don't. On 7:30, so I guess that was last week. Last Friday, we had a meeting just to kind of get up to date on some of the issues legally that were plaguing the city at the moment. Kind of what he identified to me as the number one issue at the moment was the tax appraisal issue that the county commissioner or the county tax appraiser had brought up. I know there's something going on. I don't know everything about it. Maybe the statute, he was wanting to charge you guys a rate. He can charge you a fee to do the tax appraisal issue. Your attorney was saying that he kind of took the lead for the other two municipalities in Smith County and wrote the letter. I will say he said he was going to email me the letter. I haven't seen the letter, as I said here today, that he wrote to the tax appraiser, the proposal to try to settle it. So I said here before you today, and I don't really know what it said or really anything about it other than what him and I had talked about on the phone. So I guess he's still going to email me when he finds times to email me all this stuff. But he kind of pointed out that was the number one thing at the moment was going on. So it's kind of where, as soon as I get him, I'm going to get with the other attorneys in the municipalities and see kind of the general consensus is to still go forth with that offer. Being that time has elapsed, we want to restructure an offer. I don't know where we're at, but that's that. Kind of the other thing that kind of come to mind is there was some issue about contracts going forward. I think maybe one of them was the COVID relief funding. Maybe the state's holding on to the money and it hasn't been dispersed yet or going to. That contract should be forthcoming, and I guess I'll review that. And we'll go over that.
We don't have any indication yet. That it's coming.
We don't know when it's coming. I think he said the same thing. Nobody knows, but when it does, we should be prepared. Also, the next thing, kind of the last thing down the list, was the tax sale issue for delinquent taxes in the city. I think he said he represents you guys in those actions. What actions are pending, I don't know at the moment. I don't know how many actions for delinquent taxes are currently pending with the clerk and master and the chancery court of Smith County. I will with the clerk and master, see exactly. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to file a notice of substitution to council and send it to him. And we'll get that signed by the chancellor and get me substituted into the cases so the clerk and master can tell me, what's going on, if there's any issues that have been presented, if anybody's contesting those, and when the court dates are going to be for those. Like I said, I don't even know how many there are pending at the moment. So that's kind of where I'm at. Like I said, I really appreciate you guys letting me help you.
All right, thank you very much. The next report, city reporter, you want to share?
Yes, council, I wanted to update you guys on the appraisals. I've only received one back. That's the only phone call that I have gotten from a commercial appraiser, and they gave us a quote of $2,000 to come in and appraise the Stevens building. That's on a short quote. That wasn't long. Wasn't sure what you guys wanted, how you wanted to move forward with that. But they said, pending square footage and everything based on what they could find, it would be about $2,000 to come appraise this building. I also wanted to remind y'all about special permits. If you wanted to add it to the agenda, we do have 3. Walton Days was the only one that was getting close with September date, but I didn't want those to fall through the cracks since those were the last 3 that come from the Chamber of Commerce. So that's the only thing I've got if you guys have questions.
Make a motion to add the special permits to the agenda.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? Not? All in favor?
Make a motion to approve special permits.
Second.
Okay. How many do we have? Any 3?
There's 3 and then
Okay, so we have 3 special permits. Could you tell us again what the numbers so it's on the record? What it is?
Walton Days. Which
Halloween.
was, I'm sorry?
Halloween and Christmas.
Yeah, Halloween and Christmas.
Wasn't there one for tomorrow? Did you pass the one for?
We already worked on
And we've
that.
already passed out. These were the only No, Ms. Barber thought that there was one for the drug coalition, but it's actually in Bloomfield.
Okay, okay. So we're all in favor of passing those 3 permits? Any opposed? Okay, thank you.
Can we motion to put the appraisal on the agenda, or do we want to do that next month? Would that be an appropriate time to do this?
Well, the motion would be whether to pay him to do it. So do you want to pay someone to come to do
Yeah.
appraisal? 2,000, is that what you said?
Yeah, it's $2,000.
Well, the appraisal's not on the agenda. I think
Yes.
he's right. I think we have to make a motion to put it on the agenda to discuss it.
That's what I'm saying, you would make a motion to put,
Well,
accepting that 2,000 go over the appraisal.
He's got to make the motion first, Mayor, to put it on the agenda so we can discuss it.
Right, so that would be what you would put on the
okay.
agenda.
Well, I'd like to make a motion to put the appraisal discussion on the agenda.
I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor? Okay.
Motion to accept the appraisal of the building.
So much.
2,000, to get the appraisal to $2,000 on the building.
Can we,
He made the motion for to accept the appraisal.
He needs a second.
we're still in the reports, do you mind if we wait till the regular business?
We got a motion on the floor, Mayor, we have to follow through with that.
I'll withdraw, we can do it under new business, I'm fine with that.
You would just make it a little easier if you put it
That's
on the regular
completely fine,
business.
no problem with that. I'll withdraw my motion.
We'll put it in the business here, thank you. The next report is from Police Chief Davis.
Hey guys, y'all have alright, y'all, I'm sure what's been going on. 2 things to pass on to y'all. First thing is, in just a little bit, I'm going to be asking y'all that y'all approve the purchase of 5 new tasers for the officers. If y'all remember correctly, it's either earlier this year or late last year, y'all approved for 3. This is going to replace the other ones. After so many years, they get old, taser will not stand behind their products and work for so many years, and these are old, outdated, and we need to get new ones. So the quote that I have is from the same company before. This one's $7,000. That will buy 5 new ones along with the batteries, the holsters, and the cartridges as well to outfit 5 of them. So I'll be asking you all to approve that in just a little bit. Yes, sir.
Which models are you buying? You're not buying 26Ps, are you buying the X2s?
Yes, sir. Taser X2s.
Can I go ahead and make a motion to purchase those?
We need to put it on the agenda.
Well, it's on the.
No, it's on the agenda.
It's on the agenda.
It's on there.
Yeah.
Second.
That's on the agenda already, Bill, that's your thing, yeah. Is that okay with you if we?
I don't care, no, it doesn't matter.
Bill's got it as an agenda.
I got one more thing to pass on real quick. If y'all remember, we had an officer last year that was injured on duty while clearing a call for service. I think everybody's familiar with who the officer is. He was hurt pretty bad. And obviously, he's back to work now. He's still working for us, does a really good job. And anyways, so there's a national training company that puts on training all over the United States. And so information about that incident was actually sent in to them for an award for him. And he actually won it. It's a Survivor Award is what it is. It's a national award. And it's an award that I'm aware of that they're giving for the Survivor Award. So he actually won a free week of training from them, paid hotel, room, board, and all that stuff. So we're going to be sending him to that. He'll be actually getting that award. They'll be presenting that award to him while he's there and all that. So I just kind of wanted you to be aware of it, know about that. And we're very fortunate to have him down here in the city. So, okay, guys, that's all I've got. If y'all have any questions, please ask me.
Thank you very much.
Thank y'all.
Public Works, Leslie? You got anything? Will you just
Well,
tell them again? You've done a great job, tell them about it, because it's fantastic.
You what?
I said, y'all have done a great job, so
Yeah, yeah.
build on that a little bit.
Y'all have any questions?
Is, you don't have any other answers, I don't know any more about the schedule than Sally, let me know, I think.
I don't know nothing else. Other than what you've been telling me, that's all I know.
I just want to again, just praise all of our employees, but during this heat, our public works guys have been out there repairing sewage lines,
Yep.
putting trees in, doing all this good stuff, and we really appreciate everything everybody does. It's been a kind of rough last few weeks for y'all. We appreciate it.
It's been hot.
Water sewer, is there?
I don't have anything to report. I just want to, just praise the employees for all the hard work they've done. If you have any questions, just let me know.
Okay. Steve, what's better? Oh, I'm sorry, Rusty Water, excuse me. Rusty.
Just so that y'all know, the emergency repair that you approved the bill for a while ago was a variable fee drive on one of our high service pumps. It went down the night of our last meeting. So we couldn't wait for a whole month to get it repaired, so we had to act fast on that, or the city, if another one was to go down before I could get it fixed, the city may run out of water. So if there's any questions, I'll answer them on that, but let's see. Another thing, last month, y'all authorized me to take some quotes on a tank mixer for the main storage tank. I finally got 2 quotes in, and equipment-wise, they're about the same, but installation costs vary from $3,000 to $17,000. So what I would like to do, instead of taking action on anything right now, is push it to next month and try to get some electrical contractors to look at the job, because the hardest part of the job will be connecting it actually to the power grid. And one of the bids come in and didn't even include that in, so the cheap bid didn't even include it. So I'd like to talk to some electrical contractors and see if they'll just do the whole job with a little help from us, and see if that'll come in cheaper. So if we can just push that, down the road, the next meeting, maybe I'll have some. I only got one of these bids on Tuesday, so I didn't know it was going to come in this later this time. So I will contact as many electricians and electrical contractors as I can and see what they'll do. It may come in cheaper for us. If not, we'll make a decision then.
Okay, thank you.
That's all I've got.
Steve?
Like we don't have anything for this month, we got the I project that's ready to go, we got money through the state and everything through, so hopefully September, October, we'll get in there and start getting busy during the wet season, from October to May, and hopefully this time next year, we'll be able to set up a computer and look at all the sewer lines and start determining what's worse, what we need to replace, and it's a big step in getting over the infrastructure fixed, so hopefully in the next couple of months, I'll have some report on that.
As we told everybody, we got those loans approved, so that's a good, like you're saying, it's a great thing to move forward now. All right, thank you. Chief Hyatt, fire department?
Mayor, I don't have anything to report.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. I think Evan, the engineer, did he speak to you? He is moving forward with that. I asked him about
I
that.
have not spoken with him.
Okay, well, he's definitely moving forward with the initial plans to pay that. Scott, your CFO?
Everybody should have a copy of the financial reports that I gave to you. Would ask you to give me some feedback about the visual summary. It's the only color you got in there, so if it's helpful to you, I can do that for each fund. If not, I won't worry with it. We have the balance sheet, the statement of revenue and expenditures, with some additional notes that I tried to give to you so you understood some things that are there. I know it's hard to assimilate all that information at one time. Our 21-22 budget was approved by the comptroller, so anything that exceeds the budget requirements now outside of a department, we'll have to do a budget revision, so we're in good shape there. Indicate to you cafeteria plan implementation. We're looking to implement that January 1st, but it pretty much gives us a vehicle to save some taxes for the employees. So they get a little bit of an increase, take home without any pay increase. It just saves tax monies. And we've looked into a flexible spending account implementation, but we want to move slowly and move in phases. And so if we choose to do that, that'll be a little bit later on. We're going to see how this works for everybody before we go any further with that. Item number 4 on the second page, I think I'll reserve any discussion on that until we get to the discussion item that's on the agenda and answer questions that you may have related to the retiree pensions. On the financial statements themselves, I've made a few small notes trying to help explain, but I still think at some point in time, maybe we do a workshop so I can help you understand how to read financial statements, kind of learn what the current ratios are, a quick examination of things so that you get a good handle on where we're at financially and how things are working. Nothing unusual to report, other than we got the state revolving funds approved for I&I and future drive. Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you. For the grants, I think we've kind of covered those in the discussion, unless there's some more questions you have about any of those. We have several grants and several loans right now, and Scott is going to be able to soon bring us a new listing of all of those and the finances involved, and just to help us get all on the same page financially where we are with all of those. Okay, we're going into unfinished business. The first item is animal control. Councilman Evil, do you have a motion to that effect?
The motion to suspend the rules for about 10 minutes and cede the floor to Ms. Howell.
Second.
Motion to suspend the rules. Is there any discussion on that?
Second.
Okay, I already have a second. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Ready? Is she here?
Ms. Danielle, I'm going to try to talk quickly here. For those that do not know me, I am Shania Bellum, and I am the new president of Smith County Humane. I took over at the end of November of last year. Ms. Danielle did give everybody, I think, a packet. I want to premise with, I'm grateful and thankful that we have animal control in the city of Carthage. So this is not coming from a place of me complaining about something they've done. Les and Josie have been great. I feel like we are having a good working relationship in discussing animal issues in this county, specifically in the city of Carthage. Where I'm coming from is from a nonprofit standpoint and from complaints that we receive. Okay, and so all I can go off of is the information that is provided to me, as well as the feedback I get from law enforcement and or the situation at hand. Okay, so there's a couple things that I wanted to bring up. One is an after-hours, nights, and weekend plan. Currently, on this that you've got, there is a really detailed breakdown of where the premise of this comes in, but on May the 23rd, which was on a Sunday, Smith County Humane received a call in regards to a dog that had showed up on Smotherman Avenue. At this point, I advised her that we have animal control in the city of Carthage, and for her to call the after-hours response, which is to the Carthage City Police. She called the city police, and again, this breaks it down a little bit more in detail, but for time purposes, I'm going to kind of summarize. She called the city police. The dispatcher advised her that they could not do anything because it was a friendly dog. So she contacted me back. You'll find a second packet where there's actually copies of the screenshot. I'm not going to reveal the resident's address or her name, but there are screenshots of the conversation and the communications back and forth with me at this time. I advised her that, we do have animal control. They can respond if the dog is on their property and it's not her dog. She called law enforcement back. Was advised a second time by dispatch that if the dog is not aggressive, there is nothing that they can do. The lady said, well, I've called Smith County Humane and they have told me that we have animal control. Dispatch finally agreed to dispatch an officer to her location to tell her what they could not do. At this time, she responded back to me and says, well, I've called animal control. They've told me multiple times there's nothing that they can do. Called the police department. Can you guys come get the dog? I explained to her that we don't have a shelter. We are limited to fosters, and so if I can pick up something, I'm glad to come do so, but I don't have a shelter in this county, and I don't always have a volunteer or a resident who can give their home to an animal we know nothing about. I called dispatch myself, and I spoke to the same lady that she spoke to, and was advised that on the weekends, that if it is a friendly dog, that is up to the law enforcement officer who responds as to whether or not animal control gets called. The first call wasn't up to law enforcement, it was up to the dispatcher to defray the call. The second call, law enforcement went out. Third call was to me to dispatch. Officer did go. They advised that the dog was friendly, there was nothing they could do, and they left the dog on the premise in the residence of the city of Carthage resident who was going out of town, did not have dogs, was not equipped to feed or water dogs or take care of them. She didn't have a fence to contain it, and she was going out of town, and she needed the dog removed because she didn't want to be assumed to be caring for this animal. She didn't want to have it there and her not be there, and somebody assumed it was hers, et cetera, et cetera. The dog was also an unneutered male, which means, things happen. It can be friendly one moment, and it can be in another situation down the road and come up with another male, and there'll be a female dog, and all of a sudden there's a dog fight, and somebody's getting hit trying to break it up. So just because one's friendly in one instance doesn't mean it's always going to be non-friendly, and it doesn't mean it's going to be aggressive all the time either, if they're dogs. I know Les and Jesse have responded after hours and on weekends to pick up situations. We just had one this weekend. I had to call them on, and Les and Deputy, I'm not sure if it's a sergeant or who went out with you, Les, but they did. They took care of that situation. It's been an ongoing situation for a couple of weeks. We've had volunteers going by to do welfare checks. We were able to get that situation resolved on the third call this weekend after it was clear that the situation needed some intervention. And so I know that they're capable of going out. At this point, though, they had not been notified of that particular dog being roaming at large and needing to be removed off the premises. It was handled by our law enforcement. Again, not attacking law enforcement here, because let's face it, our law enforcement, they have a job to do. And personally, their job should be focused on people first. That's our law enforcement. If somebody's bit, if there's an emergency situation, by all means, I think our law enforcement, they do really good with that. That is their role. Not every law enforcement officer is an animal welfare officer either, and there are intricacies when it comes to animal laws and the ins and outs of TCA and what's acceptable and what's not that come into play that sometimes go beyond the normal everyday, does this dog have food, water, and shelter. So I did reach out after the fact. I asked Mayor what our after hours protocol was. So we'll fast forward on May 24th, which was Monday, at 2:15 p.m. in the afternoon. I did let Jesse know that the owner had been located for that dog. So we got it back to it never got picked up by animal control. And animal control was not notified other than my conversation personally with Jesse to let him know that there was a dog that was roaming at large in the city of Carthage at that time. Also on the Sunday night, May 24th afternoon, I'd also sent a report on a Pyrenees. Both of these dogs allegedly had come from the livestock sale. And that happens on the weekends. So this is when dogs that are going to be leaving from that livestock sale are going to be roaming at large. So we need to have a weekend plan. And I don't expect our officers per se to put load dogs and stuff into their cruisers and do damage to their cruisers. That's not the purpose of them. We have animal control. We need a plan for nights and weekends. I've talked to Jesse and Les. I believe that they do a great job. They do with what they can. I think that animal control was instituted in this county or in the city here, maybe 20 plus years ago. There's not really ever been any written policies and procedures. So maybe it's time we start looking at that and figuring out what our written policies and procedures are for the city of Carthage for residents when they have a problem. Because you guys still can tax and collect the tax even when you don't provide that service to the resident. But when they call a nonprofit and we can't help, they stop donating. So if that makes sense. With that being said, I did reach out to Mayor, and Mayor advised that regarding dogs, please note that if someone in town finds a stray dog that is not aggressive and wants to keep it at their home overnight, that is their choice. I agree. If they will call the police department, let them know this, the police will notify our animal control officer the next day. He will pick up the animal and attempt to find the owner. The animal control department has been attending to stray dogs for many years in a professional manner and has a high rate of success at finding the owner, or if the owner isn't found, adopting the dog out to a new home. On the other hand, if a stray dog is aggressive and tries to bite someone, the police need to be notified and they will attend to the situation right away. Again, I agree. Not everybody in this city wants a dog. I may love animals, you may love animals. There's some people who are not dog people. And they don't want a dog on their property. So we need to have a plan for when there's a situation so that they are not asked to deal with this dog for 2 or 3 days to postpone their family plans. In this case, this particular lady went out, she spent $30 to get food and a bowl of and stuff for the dog. And on top of that, had to cancel plans with her family and that she was had before she went out of town. She didn't have a choice to leave that dog on her property or not. She had to leave that dog on her property and she had to deal with it. She could make the dog go away, she could shoot the dog, but the majority of people also don't want to be told that their only answer is to shoot, shovel, or shut up. This is 2021. We don't always handle animal issues that way anymore. So, again, we need a weekend plan, whatever that is. Les and Jesse know that they can call us if they can't get to a situation. We'll be happy to help if we can. Les is, whether it's getting permission, going, pick up the dog and taking it to the city councils ourselves, giving it food and water, and they take over when they can. I can't always guarantee, though, that I can have a volunteer that's going to be available to do that all the time. Yes, sir.
Where do you suggest that we start to get this plan in action on so we can put it in the P&P?
It was my understanding, I've asked for a written policy as far as nights and weekends, because that gives law enforcement, it's written. We do this, dispatch gets a call, they know to refer or whatever, and there's a, step by step. If this person's not available, it goes to this person. If this person's not available, it goes to this. I don't know. Les knows he knows to work there. I would honestly defer to him and have you guys ask him what he needs. I think he's doing the best job he can do with what he's got to do it with. And I'm not here to say that he's not doing a good job. A lot of people, and you guys may not even know the day-to-days of dogs that get picked up or the situations that he steps in on or Jesse steps in on or the situations we get calls on. You only end up knowing about the bad ones or the ones where there's not a resolution. And so I thought that this was a situation, we don't get 100 stray dogs a month. We're talking maybe 5 a month if we're lucky as far as strays in the city of Carthage. So we're not talking about thousands of dollars in overtime. Yes, sir.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we continue this and do a workshop on this so we can research this and sit down together and talk with everybody in a forum instead of, we won't accomplish anything here tonight anyway. Can we set this for a workshop? That's my motion.
We have a motion to set a workshop to discuss this. I hear
Second.
Any discussion on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so we'll set a date for that.
And if you don't care, if we also add Scott's workshop, Mr. Giselle's workshop and that also on the same day?
Sure.
Okay.
Quick question. The other items on here, do we want to cover that in the workshop as well?
Sure.
Yes.
Okay. That'd be
That
fine.
way we can all talk freely instead of just.
Understand? I appreciate it. Thank you.
Motion to return to Robert's rules.
Second.
Motion and second, any discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That's it. Second item on unfinished business, rebid ballpark lights, Councilman Babcock.
I did get a bid for the ballpark lights. I was informed by the mayor that we weren't allowed to use it because it didn't come in sealed. There's actually a program out there called Sourcewell, which is a state bid. If it's been bid out by the state and bid by 3 companies and deemed the lowest, we can actually use that through the state comptroller's office as opposed to using a bid system. But I'm gonna make a motion that we rebid the ball lights out so they come in sealed, so that way everybody can.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to rebid it formally with the sealed bids, and actually 2 other people have called since we talked about that.
But they didn't make any time either, so.
No, they didn't, so, motion and second, we will rebid this in the formal manner where we put the specs out and they bid in a sealed form by certain date.
I'd also like that it be put in different locations other than just the Carthage Courier.
We actually did send,
Well, I'm saying-
engineer sent this out last time to other locations, engineers locations, and we'll do that.
Well, it's
Yeah, I'll be glad to.
not an engineer problem, it's a ball field light problem. That's why the people I call, they're not engineers, they do ball field lights. Okay.
Okay, yes, sir.
I think we have 2 guests here that are going to discuss the ball field lights, is that correct?
Yes, we were just trying to get clarification on sort of what standard you want to light the field, because there seems to be some vagueness of the quality of lighting, and that could take things from a $1,000 project to a $500,000 project. So we're looking to find out what caliber of lighting you want on the field, because as of yet, there's been no specs established.
So, Steve, on that, like.
I've got the full-
The only thing I asked.
I've got the bid with the full specs on here, but I was told I'm not allowed to present it, so.
Okay, I would say, I mean, if you go to, I mean, what, the soccer field?
Hold on a second.
Okay.
Make a motion to suspend Robert's rules.
Second.
Okay, motion second. Okay, all in favor?
Now,
May I make one quick suggestion?
sure.
Are we allowed, or question, or whatever you want to call it, are we allowed to pull the specs out of that bid and only let them see the specs, not the bid itself?
Well, the bid itself is, I don't want to say it's horrible, because it doesn't give the specs. It just says Little League ball field lights.
Okay.
So that's why we had a problem with doing bidding, because there was no specifics on what we wanted.
And you're not allowed to present that to the people that are bidding?
No, I got a bid from, I'll tell you, Musco Lighting. They did all the Smith County soccer fields. And they did it in 2 different phases, either a 200-foot fence for the ball field or the full
Talk about this.
field back.
Maybe-
We're not talking price, we're not talking anything
But
else.
we're not even supposed to suggest who the people are.
Ma'am, Mayor, I talked to Mr. Jekyll, and his words weren't exactly the same words that you gave. So, matter of fact, he said if the bid was close to what the proposal was, we could actually use Sourcewell and get it approved. So, we're trying to do this the way you want it done, so if you let us discuss it, I'd greatly appreciate it.
I
As
was
long as we
gonna,
do it legally, I'm fine with it.
We have not discussed the vote or anything yet.
I'm not a ballpark field lighting expert, so, I wouldn't know where to begin. I would say for me, I'd say, well, we want to make it look like this ball field or this ball field. So my suggestion would be, would you be able to present us with a few different bids for, different calipers and then maybe show us, you know, like some examples of what those calipers would look like as far as.
The term we're looking for, the terminology is foot candles. How many foot candles we want to fall on any particular spot in the field. And I'm familiar with that brand of lighting you mentioned. And it's a Cadillac of a lighting package. I have nothing negative to say. It's the Cadillac. You can't get better. But I don't think that's what you want. I would like to be able to give you something that would compare to what I know they produce, and then give you a mid-range and then a low range.
No, I'm good with that.
But I just, if we're going through certain parameters of the bid, as it's being put through whatever channels you're talking about using, I don't want my efforts to get lost in the shuffle, because this is a lot of time and effort. Don't get me wrong, I'm happy to do it because I'm a local company. I live in Wilson County. My son lives in Carthage, so this is home to us. I'm interested in the project, but I just don't want my efforts to get lost in the shuffle if this larger company is coming in with their smooth sales pitch. But I would like to give you a 3-tiered price.
That's exactly what they did, the same thing. And I'll just say this, I'm not in it for smooth sale pitches, I'm in it for the best price for the city and for what's good for the kids. If I get the same thing for the kids cheaper, that's where I'm going.
What is your goal for the kids? What do you want?
I want that baseball field to be a baseball field instead of just some streetlights up there so they can't play at night.
I agree, but I've also understood through conversation with people in the community that maybe it's just a practice field. And then there was discussion that you wanted it up to Little League standards.
That is correct.
Which that's gonna take you at least to tier 2.
Right.
Of the lighting.
And the reason they play T-ball down there now, and the football team practices down there now.
Okay.
They need to have appropriate lighting to do those sports.
To get to Little League standards, because that is a legitimate legal term, Little League standards of lighting.
That's in the bid.
That's gonna knock out the economy package and put you at least at mid-range.
Let me just ask a question. Little League being a terminology for a specific league.
Yes.
Okay, so are we planning on having specifically the Little League qualified teams playing on it? Or are we just looking because it is mainly a practice field?
Well, that's a league that's in Smith County, so it doesn't have to be Little League. That was just a term that I used, said, hey, I want to Little League standards.
Got it.
I don't want.
Let me throw this in there. Are you a Little League sanctioned event? And if you pay dues to Little League, you get insurance through the Little League sanctioned event. And if you're not sanctioned to their standards, does that take you out of their umbrella? That would be my question. You know, if you're not, because when you sanction through them, you're sanctioned to follow their rules. And if you don't sanction to that, you know, and their insurance and everything else, if there was, I would think some type of lawsuit back. That's the reason why I mentioned this. If you fall outside of it, and they say, well, and I'm sure that would be something if a kid got hurt at night. Well, you didn't.
Our insurance is not going to pay because
you got hurt. You were putting on an unsanctioned event. You got hurt because you weren't to the Little League standard of the lights. So, do you need to be? I understand it may cost you more money, but legally, do you need to be at that standard? Because you're holding an event that you need to see at night. So I don't know if this is something you want to skip on. Do you want to be to that standard for liability purposes?
Can we clarify, may I say one thing? We're not a Little League sanctioned group, and the coaches have even said, we just need something at night. They don't even practice, they don't play at night. They practice from 6 to 8. And their concern is if it starts getting a little darker, they do want some lights out there. But
well, I would go back to that and say then, what is the economy lighting that you suggest for liability purposes? Would it be what a reasonable organization would do? Because that's what you're going to get into in the question of negligence. Is it what a reasonable town would have given the situations of the field and the size of the town and everything else? So that would be more of a question for an expert, a lighting person, to determine, maybe not skip on the price, but we have to answer that other question for liability purposes as well. Not only is it cheap, but does it satisfy the issue of liability as well? I think that.
I would like to put this out there too. We're not setting this up so we can stay a T-ball field. I want to set it up to where if we want to have girls softball, Little League games, coach pitch games, that way we have a field in Carthage these kids can play on. They don't have to travel to South Carthage to play. Minor league baseball. If nothing else, maybe an adult softball league that will pay the city money to play on the field. But right now we have a piece of grass with 4 spots of sand in it with no lights. That's not a ball field.
Rusty, did you? I think Rusty had.
He had his hand up.
I coached Little League baseball for 15 years, and I know how expensive the lighting can be. Little League baseball has this may shed some light on what you need to know. They have a recommended foot candle.
Yes.
Power, and it is. I just looked it up on their website. It is 50 foot candles on the infield and 30 on the outfield.
Correct.
And that lighting it can only have a 10% rate of change every 10 feet. So if that helps you.
Well, I'm familiar with the specs. I just want to make sure that is the spec you're willing to adhere to.
That is what I'm looking for.
I can like that field for a very economy package if you're only using it as a practice field. But if you're wanting to step up the use of the field and actually adhere to Little League standards,
that changes the whole scope of the program.
I think this may help. This would help the liability part of it. What are other cities in the general size of Carthage doing to light their fields to have Little League, T-ball, softball? If they're going with economy packages, well, that might be the standard. If they're not, if they're upping it, maybe that would be something helpful to look into, maybe what the city of Livingston does, or what Cookeville is a little bigger than Carthage, or maybe what South Carthage does, or Gordonsville, what are they doing on their fields? And that would be the standard that you look at to say, okay, well, if you're not a sanctioned event, now I think if you're gonna go sanctioned and you're gonna do the Little League thing, I think you need to follow their recommendations for liability purposes, because that's the standard you're gonna be judged on. That's what you should have done. You should have followed their rules, and you didn't, and because you didn't, somebody got hurt, now you're responsible for it.
So I think, as a council, we've got two decisions we got to make one here. One way or the other is, do we want to keep this as and do we want to look at what we need right now, and do we want to look at what we need for the future, being that right now what we need is just a practice field. But down in the future, we maybe want to look at having more Little League, lighting, possibly. And so it might cost us more, and I don't want to spend more, but if it's something that's gonna come down the road, well, we're gonna spend more to take those down and then put up the Little League. Now, I'm not really for the Cadillac package either, but if we can get in this term, that area, that medium range area, I think that's worth doing, just to be proactive instead of reactive.
I think that what we need to do is ask, when we put out the request for bids, that we request the two different levels, and then when we look at the bids, we can more intelligently decide which route we want to go. I mean, it may be going to the second tier, we can't afford it, but I'd like to at least see that option.
What I would suggest is an expendable package. You have to put the bones, so to speak, in. You have to have poles of a certain height. Your poles out there right now have been butchered.
You can't use that.
You can't use, they need to be.
That's gonna be a big part of the cost.
All of your wiring is overhead.
Got to be underground.
It needs to be underground. If we could put in, and typically we light a ball field with 4 poles. 2 in the outfield, 2 off the end of the bleachers in the infield. 4-pole system, depending on how big the field is. And we also need to establish how big your field is, because you don't have an outfield fence right now. I don't know whether to put the poles here or here. If we went with an expandable system to where we got the 4 poles in, and you lit it with X number of lights now, and then as you expand your program, we come back in and add more lights to bring it up to the 50-30 that he mentioned. That's possible too.
I have one question that's been raised by some folks who live in the area. Is there a way to set those lights so they don't shine into the homes that are right next to the field?
That was going to be my question, is this going to be something that the neighbors would need to be aware of? Is the lighting going to change?
They call that light lead, and we can build that into our photometric study, because I have my supplier of lighting now doing a photometric study of your field based on the address and an aerial view of it. But the question is how big is the field, because there's no outfield fence. If I could get with someone and find out you're at a 200 or a 250 from home plate, we need to establish that. But the light lead can be addressed with guards and shielding and what we call commissioning the lights, when we actually get out there and point them, because the ones I use have a laser that mounts on, and if we want that light to point there, we make the laser point there, and then we lock the light in place, and that's how we get the standard without the hot and cold spots of lighting. You make the lights overlap each other. But we can address that to a certain degree for neighborhoods, that are bordering it. And that might mean positioning the lights, the poles over closer to the house where the lights shine away from the house, rather than rotating more towards center field. If you follow that, we could strategically place the poles to take that into account.
So, and Danielle can probably clarify a lot of this, because she has the training, I know. That's still considered a floodway. And so again, I want to get these lights up sooner than later, because we don't have lights in there right now. But I almost feel like we need to measure out what that field is, and then measure out that field to make sure that field is not in the floodway, but the floodplain. Because if we're going to progress that park, we need to get that sectioned off. City still owns it, but we need to section it off so the floodplain is part of that property, it's owned by the city, and the floodway is part of this property. So that way we can develop the city park property a lot easier. Still not easy,
Like, there's still a lot of hoops.
but it's not near as hard as the floodway.
I think what we're gonna have to do, and this is just me from looking at it, out there, that pole, that last pole in the outfit is 272 feet. The next one's like at 250 something, then it comes over to 220. I think if we use a standard 200-foot fence and use that for the lighting purposes, that's gonna reduce the cost, it's less area we're lighting, and it's gonna get us out of that floodplain.
And I'm good with that. Can we make sure though that 200 feet is not gonna be in the floodway?
That's what I'm saying, that's what I'm saying, it moves it in away from everything. And I'm pretty sure that's not in the floodway. I'm not positive.
And we'd be able to have that expansion if we did want to be Little League qualified down the road. 200 feet would be to make that.
Yeah, I think that's the legitimate.
I'm not an expert in it.
I'd have to look at the feet, but I think 200 feet is the minor league field. Yeah, 200 feet is the standard, it's not 272 in right field and 240 here and then 210 over here. It's solid.
But my biggest thing is if we're gonna spend the money on this to do it right, let's do it the right way, so we don't take it down.
Yep.
So that we don't have to go in the floodway, all that
I agree.
stuff, so.
And just to insert, if you do start doing something on the field, it goes to the planning commission. That's by state law.
Right, we got you.
Yeah.
Which is actually on our planning agenda,
It's on the planning.
to discuss down there at the city park. You guys have voted to talk about subdividing it because of the floodway and floodplain. So I don't know what all Dr. Duke has found about that.
Well,
We've not discussed it, but I do know it's on the agenda.
Steve, would you mind getting with Dr. Duke? And I'm sure he'd meet you out there and just making sure that.
Well, I think that's what Daniel's saying. He has all kinds of, if you've seen what he's.
If you wanted to come to the planning,
Yeah.
I know it's gonna be discussed.
Just making sure
Next Wednesday.
that 200 feet is in that area is all I'm saying.
I think he sent for the agenda several maps and things like that.
He's pulled it all together because he knew you guys had requested to discuss it.
And the second thing is making sure we're able to get this bid in along with the other bid and then open up for other bids.
Well,
So
as
that
I
we're
say,
not
there's
the
so
one
far
bid.
3 people who called me since we talked about this.
Okay.
Because they heard it or something.
Okay.
So we will put a formal bid in the paper tomorrow probably, and the other outlets.
Is there anything built into the bid for the demolition of the old system, or is this bid strictly to install a new system?
I think it's gone.
Well, no, they can't leave the poles there.
The wires,
They had to do the poles up.
meters,
And the wires and everything are gone.
That might fall under Upper Cumberland Electric, because I think it was, if I was my mayor, correct me if I'm
It's
wrong.
not their fault.
They're not gonna take those poles down. If they were gonna do that, they'd take them down, let the lights down.
So, but if it was their, if
Well,
it's theirs, if it's their poles making the lights down, shouldn't they take the poles down?
Actually, they
Should've,
left the
would've,
poles
could've.
thinking we were going to use them for lights, so they left them there for the city.
But they would be willing to take them down if we say we're not going to use them.
At this point, I don't know.
We could reach out to them and find
Unless-
out.
Why don't we put in the bid to include demolition of old poles and lights? Just
Why don't we also ask them if they would take them down? since
what I'm saying is, we can bid it out, that they don't have to do it, it lowers the price.
We need to find out if they.
But if we don't bid it, we're gonna lose a
Throw
lot
one
of
other
money.
thing in, those shorter poles that we still have had security lights on them, and for some reason on Monday, Upper Cumberland came and took those off, which we actually need to have out there, so we're gonna have to figure out some way.
Well, that's another.
I
So we-
don't know, but I'm just saying, there are supposed to be
Okay,
security
so
lights. on those
are we going to
poles.
go ahead and make the motion to bid this out again under the standards of
Yeah.
the two-tier standard?
Can you go back into Robert's rules?
I'll make a motion first to return to Robert's rules.
Motion to return to Robert's rule, second? Second, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, we'll return now to who's going to make the bid.
I'd like to make the motion that we rebid the ball field lights down at the park to include the two-tier system. One, for the economy to get it put up in place as quick as possible. Second, for the expandable part so we can make it into a little league field in the future if need be. Also, to include the demolition of the old poles and old wires in case Upper Plummer does not do that.
Okay, the motion is the two-tiered system, demolition of the poles. If someone doesn't do that, to include in the bid. Is I hear a second to that?
Second, yeah.
Okay. All in favor of reading this? into
Bit of
the-
discussion.
Well, discussion.
Are you saying right now that they have nothing? Like
There's
there's zero lines right now, they can't
Yes.
use it,
Just
they
on
want
the
to go
ball
tonight?
field, yeah, well, I talked to two different people that are Cumberland, and what his reasoning, their reasoning is that they no longer like ball fields. Whatever we put out there, we'll be responsible, not only putting it out, but maintaining it.
That was very convenient. It just did that. Like, while we're talking about this, it's been the same way for years and years and years and years.
Yes, ma'am.
Just for discussion, I did get a call from a coach that said there are no lights and it's going to be soon very difficult for them to practice football down there. So they're anxious. They actually suggested we just put the donated lights back up there. But obviously that's not going to be maybe in our best interest for the future, future expansion. But I did want to mention that we did get a call on that.
I've had several of them say that too, if they could just put the donated lights.
It would work for the practice field is what they were saying, but it would not be.
The only problem we have with that is we don't know if those lights are gonna work, we put them up there or not.
There's
no sense in doing double work.
I just wanted to
That's all I'm
mention
saying,
that
we
he
don't
called.
know, because Les is
Yeah.
going through some of those, they said some of them may work, some of them may not work, if the ballast goes out, how much we're talking about spending.
Yeah,
And we
I
could be
realize
in
there are
tens of
issues.
thousands of dollars doing that and then doing this again too.
Exactly.
So-
I understand that, but I wanted to make his voice
Can I
heard.
make a motion to suspend Robert's rules one more time?
Can we finish this motion?
I just,
Well, we're in
I want to ask a
a
question
motion.
real quick
Okay.
about the motion.
We have a motion and second, we're in discussion.
For discussion.
Okay.
Do you want
Just
to
go ahead.
open it up to more?
No, if I'm in discussion, how long would it take your company to put these up if you rewarded the bid?
To put them up, it's gonna depend on the specs on the poles, is the best answer I can give you.
Okay.
How high we're going, the availability.
I'm gonna estimate 65 feet.
I'll have to talk to the manufacturer because availability is an issue right now.
Metal pole.
We just had to change, we just finished Mount Juliet Christian Academy yesterday, and we had to, at the last minute, drop our pole supplier and pick up a new supplier out of Texas because of COVID. Our poles just couldn't come in from Wisconsin. So it's a floating answer is the best I
I
can do
understand
right now.
Rough guess, 4, 6 weeks?
6 to 8.
6 to 8? Okay. That's all I needed.
I don't care, I'm just trying to keep it straight where I'm at.
Okay, any further discussion on redoing this? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, we'll get that in. Next item is retiree pay, Councilman Babcock and our CFO, yourself. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it, Tom.
I would direct your attention to my handout, page 2. The technical term that we're referring to is other post-employment benefits. Okay, we're specifically talking about health insurance for our retirees. I'll try to summarize as best I can. We've got 2 components in order for us to implement such a plan. Number 1, you have to figure out, say 1 to 5 years, what your cash flow is going to roughly be, okay? But that's not all of it, because what you have to do per governmental accounting standards and by wisdom is you have to actuarially figure out what it would take to cover retirees from 5 to 20 years. Okay?
Would this be easier to do a workshop?
Would this be easier to do in a workshop? Probably so, but let me just say this to you. My recommendation is if you're really serious about doing this, that we hire an actuarial firm that does this kind of work. Probably costs $6,000 to $10,000, and they will tell us, as good as we can get, This is what your costs are looking to be from day one, year one, for the next 30 years based on the employee population that we have and that kind of thing. Just to give you a ballpark, I have the city of Berry Hill. There's a page 23 in your handout, last page. This is the kind of information that you would get, okay? And if you look at the last 3 columns, it kind of gives you an idea, okay? Because they're close to us as far as employees and the payroll, okay? They have a totally different tax structure, much superior to ours, okay? It's a suburb in Nashville, Livingston County. But as far as the expenditure, it would be the same. But you can kind of see column 5, employer payments for current plan members, okay? We probably start off at $30,000 that we'd start to need to fund annually, okay? But as you go through time, you have to either fund it, i.e. set the money aside for future employees to retire, or you have to accrue it as an expense, or not as an expense, but as a liability on the financial statements. The general fund, that's not as big a situation, other than you know you got to pay it at some point in time. But for water sewer fund, you could be booking considerable expense going on time, and that would potentially impact what you have to do for water rates and so forth. Okay, so it's not just a simple thing of, hey, let's do it and let's pay for whoever's there. You have to not only consider who's retiring now, but what's happening for the next 25 years with your current employee population and the healthcare costs. All that's done actuarially. So if you look at this, 30 years from now, the town could have something between a $400,000, $500,000 liability that we would have to fund. Okay, if we took all the current employees and they all retired and met the criteria that we had, okay, it could be substantial. Another thought, because I don't think we want to get that in-depth with it, is to say, okay, we're going to create a cap. We'll allocate $30,000 a year for retiree health insurance, and we'll cap it at that, and we cap it per individual. And then we would know going forward exactly what the cash outflow would be. But you're still going to accrue it. You still have to have special calculations done every year for our annual audit to accrue the liabilities. Okay, so it's pretty much it's not just current funding, but what is this going to cost us all the way out for our current employee base? Okay, and then you have to report that on the financial statements. General fund, not as big a deal as it would be for the water sewer, because then you're looking at booking the actual expense. General fund is what you actually pay. Accrual for water sewer means this is what the actual expense is on the books. We have to count it as expense, and therein affects the profit of the water sewer fund, which needs to be a profit up where you have to raise rates. So, to answer your question, it's not a simple thing to do. It's a more complex thing. If you're really serious about doing it, I would recommend we get the actuarial study done. Then you know, as best as we can, this is what it's actually going to cost us. Yes.
Yes.
I'll make a motion that we put out for bid for the actuarial fund to see how much it costs for us to run this.
Is that a bid or is that an RFQ?
I mean, you gotta have 3 bids.
Yeah, I would think first have to have, only be certain firms that would be qualified to do that, so the components would be there, but yeah, probably be an RFQ out of this.
Yeah, in that case, it doesn't go by price, I don't believe, it's just by
Qualifications.
Yes, they would send in our qualifications and then we would choose one of those, yeah. So we can do that, an RFQ, we like that. It's
They don't tell us how much it's gonna cost before we pick them?
We choose them based on their qualification, yeah.
I want to send it out for bid to see how much it's gonna cost.
Well, they'll tell us how much it costs. We'll figure that out. Once we know they're qualified, we can get them ready. But I believe I'm pretty close.
It's
Okay, I just
I'll
wanted.
second that for discussion. You made a motion.
Yeah.
I'll second that for discussion.
Okay?
Okay, we have a motion to send out an RFQ for an actuary to see what the cost would be in the future. Yes, yeah.
I like the idea of having retirement to keep people in. Do I like the possibility of spending $500,000 on it? With our current budget, absolutely not. So I'm kind of leaning more towards this cap thing here. So it's something, it's not everything, but it's something. But is that cap, Mr. Ezel, would that be included in that study that they would give us, that they would come in, would they be able to include that in their study?
I think if we were to choose to go that route, I think we could get answers without having the actuarial study.
Yeah, and that's what I was gonna, because I mean, that looks like that looks like we're gonna become a fund for retirement in the city of Carthage. And I've seen so many places, cities down the road that they're like, well, when did this start? Well, it started back in 19 whatever, and well, now we're just have this, tire roll down, this big, it's gaining, and there's nothing to stop it. And so before we go and say, we want to go down this path, we could do this cap. So it's kind of a middle of the road situation. It's not where we are, but it's not down that.
Just understand, I highlighted the statement, this idea would need to be fully vetted with legal and human resource folks. But I'm pretty sure we can do something like that, but I want to, you'd have to make sure it's all kosher.
Yes, ma'am.
Did this town do a cap, or is this saying everybody that retires gets future benefits?
They have their criteria, but yeah, it's covering their employees.
It's covering all employees. See, yeah.
We've talked about.
We've talked about caps already, I think, in a little bit in our meetings. Not
Yes, 30 years retirement, and then they cover up to the age of 65.
The way they're going to accrue the expense is they're going to assume everybody's going to retire.
30 years. I got you.
Okay,
Yeah.
now, what's the possibility of that happening? I don't know. But the
Well,
reality is that-
if it goes by years of service, that would limit, for instance, correct?
Well, of your current expenditures, but you still would have to accrue,
Of
anticipate
course,
the
of
expense.
course, of
in the
course,
future.
yes.
Yes, sir.
Could we possibly do something like, okay, let's say the average person starts at age 18. Add 30 years to that, you're looking at 48 years of age, looking at 17 years worth of insurance to retire at 48.
You can't, through our present system, get it until they're age 55.
Right, so that's what I'm saying, can we not see how much it's gonna be from 55 to 60, 10 years worth of insurance at the cap? Say, okay, this employee is gonna cost for 10 years, it's gonna cost $20,000. That's the cap.
So one employee, take $8,400 times 10 years, you're looking at $84,000 plus whatever interest rate, the health insurance goes up
$84,000, maybe $84,000 we could
over that 10-year period. At least, that'd be the minimum.
As the prices right now.
Yeah, the price goes up every year,
Okay.
18% in January, this coming January. So this one could snowball on you, is what I'm saying to you.
Yeah.
But I do think we might be able to do something, but
Maybe not full, maybe partial or something like that. Okay.
So do we need this study, or are we gonna go with the cap?
I'm gonna rescind my,
Let's do,
I wanna rescind my motion.
Okay, motion is rescinded. Do we want to?
So I'd like to, I guess we want to, it's okay, make a motion that you check on the cap, that what you were talking about, that, look into that with legal and all that.
it still may be, once we have, yeah, you can do it that way. This is what we still need to have an actuarial study saying, okay, this is what our calculus now what would be. Okay,
So we have a motion, are you second?
Second.
Are you second?
He's saying, I want to discuss.
Okay, discussion, please.
I believe we brought up on the first unfinished business item that we're going to add Mr. Ezel's to the workshop. Could we add, is this what we're talking about, or can we add that?
I'm sorry, but say that again?
The after hours night and weekend plan, we said we're going to do a workshop, and
That's for him to explain the science. But if you're doing an actuarial, then that's a whole different thing.
are you saying you want to do a workshop?
Yes.
And
Yes.
That's all.
He wished to add this to the workshop
we
also.
can do that, but understand, this is not a simple,
Well, we can have the workshop, we can do, it doesn't have to be next week, we can have it spread out.
Separate.
We can have the workshop when he has the data collected.
Yeah, so now we'll do that. Okay.
That's all I got.
So what was that motion, Chad?
There's a motion, second,
Your motion?
discussion.
So your
There's a
motion was
second.
to put a cap on it, right?
Right,
Okay.
and then we're gonna wait for Mr. Zell to give us the
All
numbers.
right, so I have a second to that. Any further discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? The next item is Main Street corridor. Councilman Babcock, you want a motion?
I'm not exactly sure why that's on there, but
Okay, we'll take it off. if you don't mind.
It got tabled last month.
well, we were waiting on the planning commission and all the,
Yeah, it's got to go to
there's
the
nothing,
planning
like I
commission.
said, I didn't ask to put it back on there.
Okay.
Motion
All
to
right,
skip
so
it.
let's take that one off. That goes to the planning commission. Okay, thank you. Under new business, light removal for park, Councilman Evil, do you have a motion
I
about
don't
that?
have a motion. Can we suspend Robert's rules for a minute? Motion to suspend Robert's rules for a minute.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, you ready?
I'm dumbfounded on, not really dumbfounded, because it's pretty obviously what's going on, that the week that we are talking about lights for the first time ever, that Upper Cumberland went and took the lights down, and didn't alert anyone in the city, didn't alert anything, so, when you look into that, what I'm saying is, they took the lights down, so we're taking the lights down so that we're in a more of an emergency situation, get the lights up
So which
quicker?
lights are you referring to now?
I'm talking about the ball field lights.
There were security lights and then there were the old lights that
Okay.
were actually falling down.
What I'm saying is someone trying to speed up a bidding process? Because I want to get these lights in, but the fact that they went and took those lights down at this timing means now we're in a hurry in an emergency situation.
Okay, the original lights they took down was for safety because two of them had fallen. They were like 40 years old at least.
And
So
if I'm
those
not
are-
mistaken, we discussed that, didn't we?
Yeah, he wasn't talking about those lights, he's
Okay,
talking about the lights that
security
we just
lights.
taken.
You're talking about the security lights that they just took down Monday.
Yeah, they just took them down, and we have this on the agenda. We've been talking about it. Why are they taking them down? Why are we going to speed this process up when we had time to
We weren't
get the
even
right
aware
thing?
that was going to happen until we found out later that night they weren't there.
Okay, well, legally, I mean, you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, who's on city property taking down the lights? Well, that's the city's commission.
Upper Cumberland Electric.
And they were reminded that the board has election this year.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where, just at least if a courtesy call would have even been nice, but this is happening, and they know we're bidding out lights, so
maybe
connect the dots on it.
maybe get a hold of Upper Cumberland Electric and tell them.
That's what I'm saying. I did call him. I called one of the supervisors and I said, what's going on? We didn't ask for this to be taken down. He said, well, Upper Cumberland does not do like ballparks. And I said, well, those are I thought they were our city lights. But they not only took down the lights, they took out all the wiring.
If they don't light ball fields, do that, but apparently they do unlight ball fields.
I guess so. They
Okay,
must.
so yeah, that's what I'm saying. Can we as a city go to Upper Cumberland and say, what made you make this decision right now, right here?
I do have a meeting scheduled.
Okay.
With one of their.
So if you can report back to us what happened with that, that'd be great, because that's shady as all get out.
Yeah, that's the only thing that he told me at the time is that they.
So just to be on record
He
for
said
the
just like-
public, this is not a city issue, the city did not take down the lights,
Oh,
everybody's like,
no.
everybody's saying, did the mayor take down the lights? And I said, I have no idea.
Nothing
So
to do with
the
those
mayor had
lights.
nothing to do with it.
But what they were telling me is that's the same reason they don't do the lights at Pump Terrace. That's a private company, and if they're repaired, they have to hire out that company to come in and repair them.
Well, I like to have a report on that, so.
Sure, yes, ma'am.
Is that something that we could ask our attorney to be in on that meeting as well?
That's what I was gonna say.
Sure.
Well, I wonder, as I said here, if they came in on city property and took down city property, I know it's their position, they don't light ball fields. But I'm in a position like you guys currently are. who made that decision and at what point in time? You've lit it for how many years and it's not been a problem, and then all of a sudden now it's a problem? You came on, you touched something that didn't belong to you.
It's an abusive office.
They could, my position is if they took that position, I think the correct thing would have been to pull your meter if they didn't want electricity going to it, but what gave you the right to pull the light?
I believe they own the lights too.
Where are the lines? There are lines.
Well, now, remember, we're talking about two
I'm just
sets of
asking a
lights.
simple, I'm just, are they,
Two sets of lights.
Are they
The original
ours?
lights had to go
They're
because
not
they were.
ours.
they are,
They
okay,
were dangerous.
street.
I'm still not getting it clear.
We're talking about-
Wait.
We're talking about security.
Sorry,
Let Jesse talk.
Who owns the security lights? Us or Upper Cumberland?
We don't know. That's what I'm trying to find out from them.
We don't know who owns them.
We don't have, there's
Well,
nothing
if
in
Upper
our
Cumberland
records.
put them up, they have to be their lights.
If I become
So,
the
say that, we don't know that, so show us that you own them, and also show us that you did proper
Well,
protocol.
right.
And why did you do it on this timing, right now, all
Right.
the stars align, or what?
We
you
can
know?
certainly ask them.
Well, the next question is, are they still charging the city for the lights?
Well, they're gone. They're not there. They took out the wiring and everything.
Doesn't mean
They
they're
took
not
out
charging us.
And at what point did you stop charging the city for the lights?
The security lights.
At what point did you stop charging for the lights? Are you,
Well,
I
they took them
mean,
down Mondays.
I'm sure you have such, I mean, I'm sure the electric bill's pretty expensive. Do you know, can you differentiate that you ensure that 100% if their decision is, I'm going to unilaterally take them down, then we're not still paying for it?
No.
You know, show me the line item where it's coming off the city's electric bill. If you're not going to provide them, show me where it's coming off.
Let me just say one thing in deference to them, because when we took down, we had to take down for liability purposes, the old lights that were already falling, 50 years old. They did offer to give us their lights for free that they weren't using anymore and send them mill down. So I think they tried to work something, but what we're talking about Monday were not the big lights that lit the ball field. They were security lights like all over the park down there.
I understand that. What happened was there's a process, and we were all aware of it. We all know what was gonna happen. We scheduled it. Someone went in
I
there, took
agree.
lights that
I
we don't
agree.
know. So,
I-
yeah.
And
We didn't-
right now they have nothing.
Well,
So those were the last lights they had, right?
yeah, and so I don't think we need to make a motion out of it. You can just,
Yeah,
put this on the agenda next month,
I
report back to us.
They had honcho there, so yes.
Do you want me to try to find out?
Well, I'm talking to them tomorrow, so maybe.
I like the attorney.
I would like
the attorney.
the Attorney Mullins to get involved and see exactly where.
I know their attorney very well, Jamie Bell, or Jamie Winkler. I got some other issues I need to talk to Jamie about as well, but can also get Jamie on it as well and ask, from attorney's point, why did you take it? Maybe we can come up, maybe he can help us come up with some type of resolution to where maybe we might get them back in the interim.
Maybe a temporary solution.
A temporary solution.
And that's fine. I just want to make sure there was no foul play to force a bid through. 'Cause that ain't cool.
Well, Jamie's a real reasonable person, and I think he can point it out. And like I said, I think for the city's purposes, legally, what you want to know for sure is if they're going to take the hard stance that they're not going to give them to you, well, show us and make sure that we're not paying for those, because you were having to pay for the light and the service, for the light, you're paying for whatever light you used. So show me 100% sure, not just, oh, well, yeah, we took it off. No, you want to know for sure that it's taken off the bill somehow.
I like the idea that you would speak to their attorney. Do we need to make a motion to allow Attorney Mullins?
I don't think we ought to make one.
Make a Robert's rules for it.
No,
Oh, yeah.
no, I think it's fine for him to call first. Yes, sir.
Motion to go back to Robert's rules.
Second.
Okay. All in favor of going back to Robert's rules?
Aye.
Okay. Yes, sir.
I'm going to put on record making a motion that we ask Attorney Mullins to speak to Upper Cumberland's attorney, Mr. Winkler, to get a resolution to this matter.
Second.
Can you repeat that, Steve? I'm sorry.
I talked pretty fast on it.
Yeah.
Make a motion that we ask Attorney Mullins to speak to UMEC's attorney, Upper Cumberland Electric. UC.
Electric
It's been a long
membership
day.
corporation.
Yes. Attorney, Mr. Winkler, to get to the resolution of this issue.
Second.
Second. Any further discussion on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. All right. Yes, sir.
Make a motion to approve the purchase of tasers for the police department.
Second.
All right, motion and second. Any discussion on that? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank y'all.
Yes, sir.
Motion to adjourn.
Oh, wait, we got one more item we added to the.
What do we add?
Appraisals.
Oh, okay.
Appraisal of Stevens Building, you said it's gonna be $2,000 to get into it. Now, I do have to also throw this out. Anything to do with buildings or lands, that is the planning commission. We can certainly find out, I mean, we found out the cost of the appraisal, but this is planning commission. If you are even thinking of selling or buying a building or land, that's planning commission by state law.
Do you mind if I just talk for one quick minute here?
Sure.
You got two.
And then I need to make one quick response.
Okay.
Whether we want to upgrade this building and make it the greatest building in Carthage, or we want to sell this building, an appraisal will be a good investment for us, one way or the other, to show us, hey, this is not worth upgrading, or hey, this is a good piece of property that we can hold on to and put money into. Either way, it's us take care of this being done. So that would go, you're saying that this is something that the appraisal would need to go through the planning commission? Because I figured that the city council needs to approve an expenditure if it's $2,000.
They can approve the expenditure, but still anything to do with buildings or lands that goes to the planning commission.
So I don't believe.
I mean, you can vote to.
We can vote to
money
do,
to
because
do
this is
it,
a
yes.
money expenditure. Well, I mean, I'm willing to table this. There's no emergency rush on this. I don't mind tabling it, but if it needs to go to the planning commission first, it's fine. But we need to figure out one thing or the other. Go ahead, Steve, I'm sorry.
Well, while we're discussing the building, I think we've approved 3 different occasions to put an air conditioning unit in here, do something with the ceiling, and we've done none of that. I want to know why that work hasn't been started, or we voted to have it done, it has not been
We
started.
have a bid for $7,000 and something to do the ceiling. We could go ahead with it.
No, we didn't approve that bid. We approved the putting up the boards and putting in a new AC unit.
Well, because we heard from 2 different people who just did this.
That's not the point. I want to know why the work has, the council voted to have this done and it has not been started.
Les, do you want to address that? Is Les still here?
It's not, ma'am, Mayor, it's not for him to address. We voted to have it done. I'm asking you as a mayor, why has it not been started?
We don't have anybody who would do it, first of all. We can put it out to bid again.
Do you have nobody that can put in the air conditioning unit?
Are you talking about air conditioning?
All the above. I mean, we voted for the air conditioning, we voted for the ceiling.
Well, we can move forward with air conditioning for sure.
Hey, Steve.
Yes.
Sure.
Do I'm not remembering that I remember we talking about, but we did 100% approve it. Do you remember what month that was?
Yes.
It's been 4 or 5 months ago. I don't know.
Yeah, it's been-
I remember us all talking.
I mean, if it had been started, we wouldn't be here sweating right now, right now.
Okay.
That is ridiculous.
It was approved to do it.
I
So,
think we're told if we do it, we still have to do the
That
ceiling. because-
doesn't matter. We approved it to be done and the work is
All right,
neglected to
we
be
can
started.
certainly move ahead with it.
this is one vote I do, and I'm hopefully everyone here will hear. If we vote on something, we're supposed to have it under unfinished business at every meeting until it's done. Do you all remember that? You remember that? You remember that?
We have 3 different bids. I think
Okay.
looking back, we did bid it out.
So whether I want this to happen, I think I voted against it, but it's still, whether that happens, it still should be under unfinished business till it's done, because if the council voted on it, we want to have updates.
May I suggest this then? We have the bid. Would it be okay for us to go ahead and let that start with that bid?
No, ma'am, because that's not the one we approved. We didn't approve the bids that you had. I came back with a sheet that had the amount of money it would cost for materials.
Well, I'm talking about air conditioning.
Yeah, we got a bid, put it in tomorrow, because I won't come to another meeting to do
Move
it.
ahead with that. We can do that. I just thought you didn't want to do it.
We still need to do the ceiling.
The ceiling needs to be done too, or we're wasting our time. So I'm saying, and
They need to-
I'm willing to go as far as now, if everybody agrees, let's do a drop ceiling, let's just get it done.
I think that's what, Les, is that what
Well,
you think?
that's, Mayor, you're missing the whole point. The point is, this council voted to have something done, and you've neglected to get the work
We will move
done.
ahead with the air conditioning. That's
Why did it take 4 months for that to happen? If it would have been done when it's supposed to, we wouldn't be sitting here sweating in this building today for no reason.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Can we not meet here? I know this isn't, I don't know if we need to add it to the agenda or whatever else, but can we go back to the city hall? Why are we here anyway sweating? Why are we not at City Hall right now?
Well, because we're supposed to be spreading out for COVID, but we can go back there.
Where's
I'm so sick of COVID.
We have-
Can we go back to
Where's the
City
rule that says it's
Hall?
supposed to spread out for COVID? Who put that out?
CDC,
They don't run the city of Carthage, right?
we can go back to
We do.
City Hall, that's fine.
Well, we voted in the county commission to go back to the
the court.
CDC is an advisory,
Yeah.
board, not a government agency.
Can we go?
Tell us what to do.
I was gonna make a motion if that's.
All right.
or-
Make a motion, to go back.
Well, I wouldn't,
I'd like to make a motion that we go back to
Add it to
City
the
Hall,
agenda.
or add it to the agenda for discussion.
No, we'll go back next month.
Oh, I'll second that, we add to this agenda for discussion.
I agree.
We need to do. But if you don't mind, let's finish this appraisal one real quick.
So we'll add that to the agenda after.
Yeah, so
Okay.
let's go over that after before you.
No problem.
Sam was waiting, I think, too.
All I need to say is I probably need to recuse myself because I'm friends with people that she talked to about the appraisal. In fact, I'm the one that recommended that she talk to them because they're about the only people in the area that do commercial.
Okay. Okay,
Fair.
thank you on that. So we have a motion to
So I'm gonna I haven't made a motion
move
yet
forward with the.
for the appraisal.
can I talk to you about that?
Absolutely.
Why don't we wait until this work that we've want done, because it'll improve the appraisal amount of this building if we decide at that point to do the appraisal. Because if we do it now, they'll say no air conditioning, the ceiling, I mean, it's gonna lower the amount.
Honestly, like, I'm cool with whatever, I just don't.
You're concerned about it being another 4 months before it's done?
I just want to, I almost don't want to put any more work in this bill until we know how much it's worth. Like, if we're gonna make this a good build, let's make it a good build. If it's not worth putting all this money into, you know what I'm saying? Like, and I get it, if we already voted on it, I don't recall it, I'm taking y'all's word on it, because I don't remember doing it, but I'm just gonna take y'all's word on it.
Yeah.
So if that's the case, then technically.
This will help you refresh your memory, because you said, make sure we can paint those boards, because they were coming in pink, you said, make sure we can paint them black. You even told me that.
My memory's terrible.
Okay.
Barbara?
But I'm okay, go ahead, Barbara.
I was just gonna say, I'm kind of agreeing with where this discussion is going. Right now, we don't have any plan to sell or really upgrade other than this. So we have plenty of time to do an appraisal. Definitely, if we are gonna do these improvements, it might change it. But I think at the time that we would talk about selling it, or we would talk about doing major improvements, we could get an appraisal then. I mean, and just a random appraisal when we don't really have any plans,
Right, there's no,
doesn't.
This is how I look at it. We've already voted on this, to get this AC and this stuff, okay? So we need to do that. And maybe we are parking it for sale, and maybe we're parking it for more advancement. Is that fair? Just look at it that way.
absolutely right.
Okay, so we voted on it, let's get it done, and I'm gonna rescind my motion, and we will work on the appraisal. Let's add it to the agenda next month, see where we are with all this, and so, yeah, and then I think that's all.
You're moving,
Yeah, so this.
he wants to move to the next one.
This new business is off.
Yes, sir.
I'd like to make a motion that we add to the agenda the discussion of the repairs to the Stevens building.
One second.
To the agenda tonight. Okay. That's the next item. then. Would you like to address that?
We had to have a vote first now.
Second on that?
We have a second.
Discussion, vote, all in favor?
And now now we made the agenda. What I'd like to talk to y'all guys about, okay, obviously, we're not gonna get the one that we voted on that we wanted. I say that now we go ahead and we approve the bid for the drop ceiling and the air conditioner for work to start immediately.
Let me just throw something in, because I.
What was the
Mayor?
There's a motion, there needs to be a second.
I believe we
We have to have a
stopped.
second.
Okay,
We
I
have- we
believe-
can't-
Before we have discussion, one of
Point of order.
Okay, go right ahead.
Second.
Okay. Now, Mayor.
My recollection is we got hung up on whether to do acoustics or whatever, and Steve, you said if we don't do it now, I'm done with it. I remember that specifically, so I'm not sure.
That's not exactly what I said, Mayor.
I mean, we will certainly go ahead with the air conditioning. I'll be glad to do that. We've had some bids on that.
Well, we've got bids on the drop ceiling too?
Not a drop ceiling, it was your thing that you were talking about. wasn't it? You want
Mayor,
a drop ceiling in here?
Listen to me. The first bid you gave to us had a drop ceiling included, did it not, from Lish Contracting? Am I off on that?
It had this
I don't
great
remember drop
foam, and
ceiling.
it had
I don't remember that.
I don't remember that because I was supposed to.
Let's do this too, just so that we're not rushing with this, because like, I mean,
We're not rushing to this in 4 months.
no, listen, I totally share your frustration on so many levels. I promise you. Even if I don't agree with this hat project, I get it. I understand. I'm with you there. Would you be opposed to having Danielle pull the records of the vote, and then we make this 100%, and we need to, from here on out, we have to have things on unfinished business, that is unfinished business, and not just let it go by the wayside. Like this went by, if this got voted on, it went by the wayside. I remember parts of it, I'm not remembering it all. She's saying that it's not that, she could be totally wrong, I can be 100% wrong here, but I just don't know what the vote
I
was.
suggest you just make a motion that we go ahead and put air conditioning in, we can start working on that tomorrow.
So,
I mean, the air conditioner was $6,400, that sound right?
that sounds about right. That's not a bad bid.
I'd make a motion that we go ahead and install the $6,400 air conditioner, and then we rebid the ceiling.
Rebid drop
Do I
ceiling.
hear a second to that?
I'll second that.
Any discussion?
We're talking about a drop ceiling.
Now, this is the air conditioner.
I know.
But I also said rebid the drop ceiling also.
Did you want to rescind that first motion?
Rescind my first motion. Make a motion that we go ahead and install the air conditioning and rebid the drop ceiling.
Okay.
Okay, motion to go ahead with the air conditioning, rebid the drop ceiling. Second, do I hear a second on that?
That was the second.
Okay, any discussion? Yes.
The only discussion going on that is, do we want an AC in it before we start pumping it out of the building? Because we don't have drop ceiling.
We don't have to use it, it's gonna be in there.
We can install it but not turn it on.
That'd be what I'd say, but the thing about it is the bid, we have bids on the ceiling already. I know that for a fact.
Well, I'd like to make an amendment to the motion that we do not turn the air conditioning on until we have the drop ceiling in. I don't want to have that bill in the city. So.
Well, the city doesn't pay this bill, right? The museum pays this bill. So that would probably be up to the lease on the
I don't charge
museum.
museum either.
Well, it's true, but
It would
it's
be up
not,
to
we
them.
can't really make that decision for the museum
Oh, I got
because
you. I'll rescind my
they
motion.
pay the utilities here and they have a lease for this room.
They would be able to turn it on if they needed it.
That's what I think. I think
All right.
it's
If they're paying the bill,
common sense.
They should be able to.
if they're paying the bill, they want to turn it on. they'll turn
Agreed,
it on.
Yeah.
agreed, but it's the museum's decision.
Government doesn't have much common sense.
Does the drop ceiling have to go with the air conditioning?
He's asking for
You put
bids.
two things
We can
together.
have two separate motions.
He's just asking for a.
Well, I rescinded my motion, so if it's paid by them, it's none of my business.
Obviously, we're not going to get what we've approved. You remember what we talked about, right?
We didn't do the drop ceiling.
Sound, right, we didn't do the drop ceiling.
We
And
talked
it's been
about
voted
covering on the ceiling.
The board's on the ceiling,
Yeah.
okay?
Well, he did, I'm sorry, you are right, there was a bid from Stephen Lish for the foam and for, it wasn't a total drop ceiling, but to come down lower with the ceiling.
I do remember that part.
There was
There was a
also,
lot.
So we should have everything in place.
was there not
I
something
think
that?
everything you
did
want
we
is
not-
there.
Yeah, we discussed.
We also talked about something else, and that.
We've already voted this.
That I've got the price of materials that come from supply, how much it costs to put that on this roof. With insulation and insulation
But we
board.
did not have an installer, and we talked about
Right.
the city maintenance
Doesn't-
installing it,
the
but
city
we
does not
need to
want to
change
install.
that
I thought
probably
we had one
and get
guy
an
looking at
installer.
it.
No, we talked about the city employees.
Yes, they were
And I
gonna do
think
it.
that's pretty risky and putting extra work on them. I think we should just probably have.
They're not
Just let
really
us do it.
equipped to do that kind of high ceiling stuff,
Forbid it.
that's not there. I think that's where we got hung up on it last time. We can certainly,
No, we just
just make a
gotta ignore it.
motion, to go ahead with the air conditioning, let us start working on that then.
Well, we want to get the roof
I want to
done.
know about the ceiling too, I think the museum too.
What's
So,
the motion?
Which one?
What we doing?
The current one is for the HVAC to be installed at the $6,400 and rebid the ceilings.
All right, let's vote.
That's where I'm at.
Can we rebid the ceilings to have what we said the first time and the drop ceiling? Can we have both of those and see?
Yeah,
what those
rebid the
are?
ceilings in both different fashions. The drop ceiling and then someone else installing the boards up, the.
Let's vote on the AC, and then let's add the other item on the agenda for drop ceilings. Let's get that bid.
Let the drop ceiling be different.
Or whatever ceiling, now, whatever ceiling.
Okay,
Bid.
that's, it's all in there the same
If
thing.
it's going to be performance hall, drop ceiling's not going to work.
I agree, I don't disagree.
It's almost.
So the motion is to go ahead with the air conditioning and
Yes.
rebid the ceiling for two different.
Both options, yes. Second.
All right, any further discussion? Okay, all in favor?
aye.
Okay.
Motion to adjourn.
No, wait. Need to add that I'd like to make a motion that we move to City Hall going forward.
Second.
Okay, we'll certainly do that, no problem, we just do
We
it.
need to have discussion and make it an official vote.
I don't think we need discussion.
Would
We
you
did
like to
first and
discuss,
second, we
any,
brought it
any
up.
discussion on
Just
this?
to make it official.
Yeah, I'll give a discussion. The CDC is an advisory board, not a government board.
Okay,
We're the
all-
governing board.
all in
Well, I'm in the middle of discussion.
All
but
in
if I-
favor of moving to City Hall for the next
Hold
meeting?
on a minute. We've
I was in the
got.
middle of saying something, Mayor. Point of order.
Go right ahead.
Okay, the CDC, I'm gonna say this loudly, the CDC is an advisory board. We are the government. We make the decisions, we don't go off the CDC unless we vote to go off the CDC. So I'm making sure that's clear. That's all I have for discussion.
Fine, and all in favor, say aye, please.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right.
I got one more thing. Last thing, anything that we discuss on past meetings needs to go on, I don't think we need to make a motion for this, needs to go on here so that we see where the progress is until it comes back. This slowly gets snuck back in, and I don't care if I agree with or disagree with it. The council makes a decision on something, we need to get updates on it. We can't just kick it back and then find out like,
We-
We've been going on for 2.5 years.
We-
Yeah, so
we will
that
look
needs to
back at the
happen.
records and make sure of that.
Okay, thank you so much.
Second. All right.